Okay, so far it seems like artificial intelligence has gotten a little better at being able to draw hands, which is kind of horrifying because there was a obviously well, like, let's start there. I don't really like AI. I don't like the whole concept. Obviously, there's artificial intelligence that is used to benefit certain things, and like, I mean, my phone here has artificial intelligence, like, to autofocus and stuff like that. And there's like that different layer of like optimal, efficient, and productive and helpful for just practicality. And then there's also just a cheap method of creating stuff on your behalf that is rooted in stealing and sourcing from other influences. And like, there's been people who, when they post the AI art, there is what do you call it, there other people's signatures that are kind of like blurred out. And like, if they seek enough inspiration from someone, there's also some times where you can like kind of notice who the inspiration is from, and you can kind of track it that way, because you're like, hey, stylistically this looks like this person's art, and they're like, oh yeah, I typed that into the prompt. And there was that discussion about how it's kind of it there is like, AI will catch up, and that it is going to be, so you can just make that distinction between saying that like, I appreciate something if it is made more by someone's hand. And while that does have any, like, that does have interesting merits in the sense that like, yes, it would be cool to be able to just say, hey, I would prefer if someone has made it by hand. That doesn't take away from the fact that a lot of the artificial intelligence that is made, or the pictures that are made from artificial intelligence at least, are sourced from art that already exists. And there's a line in art community that is, there is a difference between taking inspiration and making your own, but that also is more indicative, I feel like, because the common way of making art, beforehand, was it is you have to physically make it. And that was where that art, like, argument is. You could say that these things are taking inspiration from, but that has the disconnection between, like, this isn't someone making it. This isn't it being created. It is just creating based off of this other person's. And there's like, if a physical person is making it, that has more merit in being inspired by somebody and them taking the hours to incorporate and, or like, what is it, like, create, shift, and like make adjustments to make their stylistic needs met, or also just like to learn from that. Because, there's people who are like, tracing is a way of learning art, because that way you can learn anatomy or certain poses and like understand muscle movements. Because like, there's a line between you are creating and you are putting the effort to learn and change something and seek inspiration from it. Because like, if you're like, I don't really know how to draw like mosaics or stained glass like stuff, you can get inspiration from other ones. If you want to learn like a little fantasy, like pastel colors, how to mess with colored palettes, people have the little code, like the little color code schemes that they put next to like a art piece that they made. And that is something that you could be like, oh, I didn't think about using that kind of green and that kind of brown to make that kind of like contrast in the piece of art. And that is seeking inspiration. Having that argument is different, because you can't say it's the same thing. You just can't. Like, having that argument was just rooted on the fact that art was, you have to physically make this. You are making it your own because you physically are, one, making it, and two, you are interpreting it in your own way. If you want to learn something, that is you interpreting how you want to learn it and incorporate that style into your own thing. That now being done by AI art isn't the same thing. It's not creating, it's not taking inspiration. It's like, it's using these things and making it in like 5 seconds. That isn't the same as putting in effort to transform this piece into your own stylistic needs or creative like outlet. Because I mean, and that's also like, you could say that you have an advantage there, but obviously if you like insert enough prompts or just continually churn, like, I liked this version, make this but make it more pixelated, or use this and make it more like brush stroke like, or make it look like watercolors, that's not creating anything. That's not like, that is making stuff. And I'm sure like there's been cool stuff that you can make through AI art. I used like the Dream AI thing, or Dream IA. I don't know what it was called. I don't remember. That was like the app. I used it for like 5 prompts because I was like, this is cool, and it made more like ephemeral, non-literal things. And I was just like putting in things that existed, not using other people's like artistic stylizations. I was just like, make this game in this style, or make this anime in this style. And I wasn't like posting it to make it myself. And it was also like pretty, like, it wasn't as intelligent as, the AI art. I don't even know what people are using. I don't know these apps. I'm not keeping up with it because it's not something that I take interest in. I don't know what those apps are that people are using these days. And it just wasn't as advanced as these, because it wasn't creating any like structure in anything. If I would want it to create like a steampunk city, it was very loose, and it was just using like brown tones. It was very like, it would just like, if you were to like imagine like a dreamscape, it was very like wavy and like flowy. There wasn't actually like defined rigid lines, and like no building that it would made would that it did make had structure. And that was cool because you could like fill in the blanks yourself as to what you wanted, as to what it would look like. And that was cool because it was like you can see some of the stylization that it took. Like if you wanted to say like if you wanted Gothic architecture, but in a neo-punk like color scheme, you could make that, and you could see like a little loose interpretation of that, and that was cool because it wasn't like making it and claiming it as your own. And that's the hard part that's coming with people making that kind of art now, or that post that was making the distinction between you can just argue that you like art that was made by a human person and that it was like you appreciate the human effort that went into that art. And that's the hard part because people who are AI bros or like tech bros like that are saying they make that. They're like, I took time, I spent time putting these little prompts. You're not putting in the same effort. And that's going to be hard because like you can say you make that distinction and you want to clarify that with a person beforehand before you make a commission. But that isn't, I'm like, these people do think they are creating this art. They do think they are actually putting in the same amount of effort. And if you want them to commission that, and you could still just be like, I don't know. And it's the hard part. The weird, crazy part is one, like aside from like taking jobs from people who are like can make art and like would be cooler and like you could communicate with and have them make that art with for like a more valuable price. The thing that is hard is like these people are using this. Most people are using this as like a cheap way to make easy money. So these people could be charging like $30 for spending 10 minutes typing out different little prompts and just finalizing and being like, oh, hey, do you like this one? And they're like, oh no, I don't like the nose. And it's like, and then they click this same prompt, like this prompt, this picture, but change the nose to be more angular. And they could just do that and then be like, oh, here, an easy $30. And they could make commissions out of like, they could make like 30 commissions a day in theory if they just spent like maybe like 2 hours sitting in front of their computer taking commissions from people and just raking in the money. And like it's nice, like in the capitalistic sense, I want to root for people to make money, obviously, but not in the sense that you're taking from people who do have talent and art and have like a drive and have put effort into this. Because these people, like, you know, these people's hands cramp, these people get long-term arthritis because like they continue to hold a pen and they make art physically, or you know, like in other mediums that are like non-digital. But these tech bros do think they are making this art. They're like, which is crazy because I'm like seeing people argue with other people on Twitter when they're like, oh, hey, like, no, I actually took time. I spent time. I sat here and I typed different prompts and I like typed all these little things and make this picture. And it's like, that isn't the same effort. And it's awful because I'm like, if you were trying to learn, there is an argument to be made. If you were trying to learn, take inspiration, and you're trying to like physically incorporate that by drawing that and like trying to make a parallel to something that is that interesting or that articulate, or to use that for your own ideas, but to just use these pictures as your content, I think isn't fair. Like it isn't fair. And just freaking like that was the fun part about like before when it couldn't show hands, that you could noticeably see, hey, notice how that person cropped out the hands? Like it could look like an old, super cool archaeological, like not archaeological, like old historic, like discovered in England painting, and have that like beautiful detail and that Victorian stylizations that looks like it's painted on canvas, but the hands are missing. So you're like, why did it crop out the hands? Or why did it not crop out anything in the back? Or like, why does its eye look a little off? Like there are some things that you could accredit to human error. But now that it understands hands, it still looks a little off, but eventually, obviously it's going to catch up. It caught up in like less than 3 months, and it can make things that look super cool. And that's horrifying. Like that's cool if you were just using it for your own pleasure. If you're not posting it, if you're not making money off of it, if you were just like, these are cool. But I've seen people who like, they just post pages and they post pictures on Instagram and they have like 12,000 followers, and it's just like, I make AI art. You don't make AI art. You save files of AI art that AI made for you. You did not create anything. You wrote words into something and had it make it for you. You cheaped out. I'm like, if they sell prints, I hate them. I didn't look too far into it because I'm like, as soon as I see you make AI art, I unfollow or I don't like. Unless I can see that you have like a history of drawing stuff yourself and then use this AI art, like maybe say your picture versus the AI art one, or like let's say you could use this as a content too. Like if you were a YouTuber or someone who draws, you could be like, oh, my friend gives me these 3 prompts and I make this picture and see what the AI art does. That's cool. You can make something from that. You could make content that is transformative based on AI art. But if you are selling it off as your own stuff, like this page that I saw that one of my siblings sent to me, I was like, that looks like AI art. And then I went to the page, I scrolled up, I saw that in their bio, it was like, oh, AI art. Because like on Instagram, you don't see their bio description, but in the and all the tags that it had under the post itself, it didn't say AI art. It just said like fantasy, neo, like alien architecture, like all this stuff that wasn't indicative of that. It was not drawn by hand, like, digital stuff like that. So like all these hashtags weren't indicative of this is made by AI art. AI art. Then I went to the page itself. It said that it's AI art, and I was like, oh hey, this is AI art, and I had to ruin the fun. And like, it doesn't always have to ruin the fun, because like even in Instagram posts, again, if you were just someone who's making content on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, you could just be like, hey, I wrote these prompts, and like I thought about these prompts and I wrote it down. I didn't look at it, and then I drew my own. Here's mine, and then here's the one that they made. And like the first picture is the AI one, and then the second one is yours, or the first one is yours, and then the second is the AI art. Because you could also get those tags in that get content generated to like people looking at your work, like your work that you made, and then the work that it made. Because that can be transformative, so long as you're selling your content and not theirs, not the artificial, intelligently made art, because that isn't made, that isn't created, that's not effort. I could make cute, cool, beautiful things, but not have to make it at all. I could write 5 words that no one else has written before together to make this cool, transformative thing, and that doesn't mean I made it. I just thought of something and I was like, let's see how it looks, and it made it, but I didn't put effort into that. I was just like, that sounds like it'd be cool, and then I get to see it, but posting it as my own, that's wrong. I hate that. I think that's horrifying. I hate that. So I'm like, it's hard, because I'm like, how are you gonna ask somebody if they made it? These tech bros think they made it. They think they take pride in this thing that is sourcing all kinds of images from probably stylized characterizations of people, like, so like anime characters in this certain style. But this other person that you find, you're like, this person makes that same exact style. You can see that there's like at least 5 pictures in their profile, like in their Instagram page, that this probably sourced from, and you can like, it's traceable if you know artists' styles well enough. Because I'm like, there's some people who I see post, or I see other pages share these pictures, and I'm like, I know whose that is. And then I'm like, oh hey, do you want to credit this person? Or like, hey, at least credit this. Like, you can like, don't crop out their freaking thing. I try to do something about it, because I'm like, if I can recognize someone's art, and there's a couple of people who you can recognize in the digital scape, like if you're someone who you follow well enough, or you like their art well enough, you can acknowledge it, so that you can see in some AI art. But eventually, like the internet's only so big, so people won't be able to catch up on that. And these people who are making stuff and probably sell it for themselves aren't creators, but they'll like make commissions based off like they made it. They'll think they made it. They have this like idea that they actually put effort into something, and I hate that so much.